My mom demanded I pay $15,000 for my sister's wedding. When I refused, she used my financial information to empty my accounts. She thought she'd won, until my sister called me the next morning in complete panic. "Hello everyone, my name is Abigail Turner. I'm 34 years old, and the day my mother emptied my savings account, I laughed. Not because losing money was funny, not because I wasn't angry, but because I knew something she didn't. By the next morning, my younger sister was crying on the phone. Wedding vendors were canceling reservations. Bank investigators were calling, and the family that thought they'd gotten away with everything had just walked into the biggest mistake of their lives. Looking back, the money wasn't what hurt me most. It was realizing my own mother believed she had the right to take it. My younger sister, Jessica, was 5 years younger than me. Growing up, she was the sunshine of the family. Outgoing, funny, always surrounded by friends. I was different, quiet, focused, always studying. Whenever report cards came home, Mom smiled at Jessica. She has such a free spirit. Then she'd look at me. "You're the responsible one." At first, I thought that was praise. Eventually, I realized it meant something else. Whenever someone needed help, I was expected to provide it. Jessica's first apartment deposit. I helped. Dad's medical deductible after surgery. I paid it. Mom's car repairs. I covered them. Every time I reached into my savings, Mom would smile. "We'll never forget this." The funny thing was, they always did. I worked as a senior software engineer for a healthcare company. The hours were long, the projects demanding, but I loved what I did. For nearly 6 years, I saved almost every bonus, skipped expensive vacations, drove the same reliable car, packed lunches instead of eating out, not because I enjoyed denying myself, because I had one dream: buying my first home, a small white house with a front porch, nothing extravagant, just something that was mine. When my savings finally crossed $200,000, I cried, not because I was wealthy, because every dollar represented years of discipline. Then Jessica got engaged. Her fiancé, Ethan, was genuinely kind. He adored her. The wedding planning started almost immediately. Beautiful venue, live band, luxury catering, designer flowers. Everything looked incredible. About 2 months before the wedding, Mom invited me over for dinner. Halfway through dessert, she smiled. "We need one little favor." Immediately, I knew those words meant trouble. "What kind of favor?" She folded her hands. "The wedding budget came up a little short." "How short?" $15,000. I nearly dropped my fork. "15,000. She nodded casually. "You have it?" "Yes. But it's my house fund." Mom sighed dramatically. "Abigail, it's only money." I quietly answered, "No, it's my future." She frowned. "Jessica only gets married once, and I only buy my first home once." The room became silent. Finally, Mom pushed back her chair. "I never thought you'd become so selfish." I stood. "I've spent 10 years helping this family. I'm saying no once." She didn't respond. She simply looked disappointed. 3 days later, I left for a work conference in Seattle. Everything seemed normal until I landed back home. My banking app immediately displayed several fraud alerts. At first, I assumed someone had stolen my debit card. Then I looked closer. Multiple electronic transfers, several large payments, luxury wedding vendors, event deposits, nearly $15,000. My heart skipped a beat. I immediately called the bank. Within minutes, a fraud specialist answered. She carefully reviewed every transaction, then quietly asked, "Ms. Turner, did you authorize these transfers?" "No." "Do you recognize the receiving accounts?" One name immediately stood out: Jessica's wedding planner. My stomach dropped. The specialist continued. "It appears someone used previously stored account information. Can you freeze everything?" "We already have. Your remaining accounts are secured." "What happens now?" She explained everything carefully, because I'd reported the activity immediately. The bank had already begun reversing transactions where possible. Several payments were still pending. Others had been flagged before settlement. An official fraud investigation had begun. I thanked her, hung up, then sat in complete silence. A few minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom," I answered. Before I could speak, she laughed. "See? It all worked out." I frowned. "What?" "You would have spent that money on a house. Now it's helping your sister." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You took my money." "It wasn't stealing. We're family." I quietly asked, "Did you really just admit that over the phone?" She immediately went silent. Then, she hung up. I stared at my phone, then smiled, not because I was happy, because the bank had just recorded everything. The following hour, I spoke with the fraud investigator. I forwarded every text message, every email, every voicemail, including Mom's phone call. The investigator quietly said, "Thank you. This information is very important. That night, I slept better than anyone expected. The next morning, my phone rang at 7:12 a.m. Jessica, she was crying so hard. I could barely understand her. Abby, the florist canceled. The venue says our payment is frozen. The wedding planner won't answer. What happened? I slowly sat up in bed, then quietly answered, I think it's finally time we talked. Sometimes, people think they've won the moment they take something from you. They never stop to wonder what happens when banks, contracts, and the truth finally catch up with them. As my sister sobbed into the phone the next morning, begging me to tell her what was happening, I realized the real consequences hadn't even begun yet. Jessica was crying so hard, she could barely finish a sentence. Abby, the florist canceled. The venue says our payment is frozen. The wedding planner said there's a fraud investigation. What did you do? I took a slow breath. I didn't do anything. I reported money that was taken from my account without my permission. Silence. Then, what do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. The bank froze every payment made using my stolen account information. Jessica gasped. Mom told me you changed your mind. She said you secretly paid for everything. I closed my eyes. Jessica, I never agreed to pay. The silence on the other end lasted nearly 30 seconds. Then she whispered, she lied to me. I think you already know the answer. She started crying again. I have to go. The line went dead. An hour later, someone pounded on my front door. Mom, Dad, Jessica, and Ethan. Mom walked inside before I could even speak. You have to call the bank. This is your sister's wedding. I calmly closed the front door. No, you started this. You can fix it. I shook my head. No, the bank is investigating fraud. I can't interfere. Mom slammed her purse onto my coffee table. It wasn't fraud. It was family. I looked directly at her. You used my financial information without my permission. You admitted it. You recorded me. I didn't. The bank did. Her face immediately lost all color. Dad looked at her. You confessed? She stammered. I didn't. I wasn't thinking. No, you weren't. Jessica slowly turned toward Mom. Is it true? Mom couldn't answer. Jessica asked again. Did you tell me Abby agreed to pay? More silence. Finally, Mom whispered. Yes. Jessica stepped backward. You lied to me. I was trying to save your wedding. You were trying to force my sister to pay for it. Ethan finally spoke. His voice remained calm. Mrs. Turner, if this money wasn't yours, why did you think you could spend it? Mom stared at him. We're family. Ethan quietly answered. My parents are family. I'd never steal from them. The room became completely silent. Dad slowly sat down. He covered his face. I should have stopped this. I nodded. Yes, you should have. Just then, my phone rang. It was the fraud investigator. I answered on speaker. Ms. Turner, yes, I wanted to update you. We've recovered most of the disputed funds. I smiled slightly. Thank you. The remaining transactions have been reversed. We've also referred the matter for further review because we have evidence the transfers were unauthorized. Mom's knees nearly gave out. She grabbed the back of a chair. The investigator continued. Someone may contact you for a formal statement. I understand. After I hung up, nobody spoke. Jessica slowly looked at her mother. You stole from your own daughter. Mom burst into tears. I was desperate. No. Jessica shook her head. You were entitled. I would have postponed my wedding. I would have canceled flowers. I would have changed the venue. But you never gave me the chance. Mom covered her face. I thought this was easier. Ethan quietly took Jessica's hand. We don't need a luxury wedding. We need an honest marriage. Jessica nodded through tears. Then, she walked toward me. I'm sorry. You've spent our whole lives helping me. And I never realized how much Mom expected from you. I hugged her tightly. This isn't your fault. She cried into my shoulder. I should have asked where the money came from. I just believed her. Dad finally stood. He looked at me. I'll repay every dollar she tried to take. I shook my head. The bank has already protected my accounts. He lowered his head. Then let me repay your trust. Those words mattered far more than money. 2 months later, Jessica and Ethan were married, not in the luxury ballroom, not beneath crystal chandeliers. Instead, they chose a beautiful public garden. Close friends, immediate family, simple food, simple flowers, simple happiness. It became one of the most beautiful weddings I'd ever attended. At the reception, Jessica stood and raised a glass. I almost began my marriage with money that never belonged to me. She looked toward me. My sister taught me something I'll never forget. The strongest families aren't built by taking from one another. They're built by respecting each other's boundaries. Everyone applauded, even Dad. Mom quietly cried, not because anyone embarrassed her, because she finally understood what she'd nearly destroyed. Epilogue: it's been 3 years since that wedding. The fraud investigation ended months later. The financial issues were resolved through the proper legal and banking processes. I recovered my savings. And 6 months afterward, I bought my first home, the little white house with the front porch I'd dreamed about for years. The first person I invited over wasn't a realtor. It was Jessica. She walked onto the porch carrying a homemade pie. She smiled. "You finally did it." I finally did. We sat together watching the sunset. No arguments, no expectations, just sisters. As for Mom, she spent a long time rebuilding trust. Not through gifts, not through promises, through consistent actions. Dad retired shortly afterward. For the first time in years, he stopped staying silent when something was wrong. My thoughts. Looking back, the money was never the greatest loss. Trust was. Money can often be recovered. Relationships take much longer. That experience taught me something I'll never forget. Helping family is a choice. Taking from family without permission is not generosity. It's a violation of trust. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do isn't fight harder. It's calmly let the truth, the records, and the consequences speak for themselves. Because real love never demands what isn't freely given.